Hey everyone, so today we're going to go over the 4 biggest Romance languages, and I'm going to give you some information and tips about each one of them. So we're not going to go over Romanian because I do not speak Romanian well, besides a few words, scuze. So let's go and start with Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese. So we'll start with Spanish. Spanish is, I would say, especially in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere, is likely the most important of all the Romance languages. So everywhere from the United States down to Argentina, Spanish is widely spoken, whether it's in a specific dialect or you're speaking Spanish that comes from Spain. It's just the most widely spoken language, and it's very important, especially not only if you're living in one of those countries or if you're living in the United States. You need to learn and you need to understand Spanish because Spanish is growing in the United States. So let's start with a few tips. Spanish is relatively, I would say, the easier of all the Romance languages. So when we start speaking in Spanish, you know, just the basic hola, ¿cómo estás? Or to be formal, you will say ¿cómo está usted? And of course, there are just slang where you can just say like ¿qué tal? What's up? Or in specific countries such as Mexico, some people will say ¿qué onda? So, you know, you can always just switch up. You can say what you like, but if you're in a formal environment, ¿cómo está usted? If you're in like a job interview, you might want to say that. But definitely one important thing to be almost like a native Spanish speaker, or to be similar to one, you need to roll your R's. So, ahora is extremely important. Now, that is what you need to learn how to do. You need to roll your R's. So, if you just go ahora, that's not Spanish. You're butchering it. So, ahora is something you really need to practice. So, I think that's really the prime feature of actually kind of mastering the actual accent. You really need to learn how to roll your R's. And, you know, definitely the most basic Spanish is definitely extremely important to learn in today's world. So, you know, if you're gonna go, say, I want to go to the store, quiero ir a la tienda, you really should know like some of those basic words like I have, tengo, as I just said, I want, quiero, or I need, necesito, or just other basic words, man, hombre, mujer, woman, or son, daughter, hijo, hija. These are words, you know, just the most basic Spanish words you need to understand, you need to learn. Because if the country, right now around 15% of Americans speak Spanish, whether it's a first round or first language, second language, sorry, I may interpret some of the statistics here, but it is again a growing language, especially in the Southwest, California, and many states in the New York City metropolitan area. Sorry for the pause, but we're back. And yeah, again, it's extremely important again to learn Spanish, and I definitely suggest that you prioritize it over learning the other languages, especially if you live in the United States. I mean, if you're living in a specific other region, now if you're living in Canada and Quebec, or if you're living in Haiti, if you're living in Africa, if you're living in France, if you're living in specific regions in the Pacific, then we can start with French. Français. Je parle français. I speak French. Most probably basic introduction to French. I speak French. And, you know, usually if you're going to speak in France, you're going to say, you know, hi, you say salut. But when I was in Quebec, a lot of people just straight up say bonjour, instead of saying, which is good morning, but some people just, it could be 8 o'clock at night and people say bonjour. Ça va, which was more of like an informal way of saying, how are you doing? Most people, you'll say, comment vas-tu, or comment ça va, but ça va was kind of just bonjour, ça va. A lot of people in Quebec would say. So, you could go that way. And it's extremely important, again, to learn this French if you're in specific regions like in Quebec or in France, Africa, specific regions, it's in the northern, kind of the Sahara region. A lot of people speak French. But again, if you're in the United States, it's not really widely spoken outside of Creole communities in like Louisiana, or if you have specific, especially in like the New York metropolitan area, you have Asian communities who speak Haitian Creole. But in Louisiana, of course, and sometimes in northern Vermont, New Hampshire, in New York, you may find some communities that do speak French. But it is, I would say, one of the harder of the Romance languages, the 4 major ones. So how I would kind of list it is, Spanish is the easiest, Italian's kind of up there, the easier. Then comes Portuguese. Portuguese, which is similar in a ways to Spanish, but some people may have difficulties the pronunciation, so I'll put that in third. With French, is very difficult, but it's not when you really start to get the hang of it. And let's go to Italian next. So Italian, kind of be similar to, in ways to Spanish, as I mentioned, but it's different. So, for example, in Italian, if you say now, it's ora, like ora, ora, and in Spanish, you'll say now, ahora, ahora. And for French, it's mantener, so it's different, it's in Portuguese, it's agora, so they're all similar except for the French. French can be a little different than the rest of them in the way words look and they sound, but of course, they're all Romance languages nevertheless. So, with Italian, it's, a very interesting language. Io parlo italiano. Speak Italian. So it's kind of has like, you draw it out more. But it's a beautiful language nevertheless. And let's go finally to Portuguese. So, like, do you speak Portuguese? I'll say, sabe falar português? Or, I can speak Portuguese. Posso falar português? It's, kind of like, you have to sound it out, like, so the difference, even though Spain and Portugal, they're next to each other, many of the words, they look the same, they're kind of spelt similar, the pronunciation is definitely different. So in Spanish, well, you will roll your R's and really put emphasis on the R's. In Portuguese, you don't. Portuguese, it's got an H sound, so as I said, falar. So it's not falar, it's falar. It's not how you say it. Falar. So posso falar português. You falo português. I speak Portuguese. So it's definitely, again, the R's are different, and that's really big. And so C's also have like an S sound to them as well. So definitely, the pronunciation in Portuguese is extremely important to focus on. So, definitely, if you're gonna learn Portuguese, consider learning Spanish first. Then you'll be learning Portuguese. And this is not, I'm only saying this is if your first language is something else. But of course, if you already have your first language, or already speak fluent Portuguese, and then you can go learn Spanish. Of course, there's no issue with that. I'm just giving a suggestion to people who are new to speaking these languages, because of course they're very difficult. At first when you look at them, they're confusing. They may look similar in ways, but to English, for example, but they're different languages and things have to be pronounced properly. So yeah, I mean, this is just a quick rundown of the 4 major Romance languages. Again, Romanian is kind of in the back. I would consider that personally, for me, the more difficult of Romance languages. I don't know much Romanian, but it's definitely something I've been looking into, reading about more and learning more. Like, for example, in Romanian, to say hi is bunia. It's completely different from saying hola or salut or salve or ciao. So it's definitely different. But again, quick rundown of the introduction to Romance languages, and I hope to put out more content in the future so that we can kind of break into the Romance languages, specifically each one of them, into more detail, and we can learn more about them together.